Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today we have an incredible guest. I'm super excited. He lives from, I don't know if it's much warmer actually there than Utah. I think it is. He's definitely got water closer to him on the ocean, just north of San Francisco. But his name's Joey Chandler, and he is a purpose coach. And if you know, when I talk about fueling your legacy and my legacy structure of legacy, core values, fulfillment, faith, family, fitness, finance, fun, and then the results. Purpose really starts at the legacy. It's the foundation of everything we do, and the rest of the structure can't be built until we know what we're trying to build, and that's really the foundation of it. And so, and it does tie into fulfillment as well. So I'm super excited. We're going to have a little coaching session here. He's going to help me and process me, but I also want you guys to hear his story and hear how he got to where he is and his experiences, because that's really where we're going to gain the most is hearing that, connecting, and then watching the process unfold. So I'm super pumped. Welcome, Joey. Can you go ahead and just give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got to where you are, why you're so passionate, and where you see yourself going?
Thank you so much. And hey, congratulations on writing your book. I heard that you got a book out there. So just huge props to that, because that's no small feat for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
So my name's Joey Chandler. I'm a purpose coach. And ultimately what that means to me is I help people identify who they are and what they're about. And to tell my story, the first thing I'd like to do, though, is define what I mean by purpose, because purpose is used in many different ways by many different people. And I just like to clarify what I mean by that. And I say that we all have something at our core. It's something about love or joy or happiness, something like that. And our purpose, why we are here, is to experience that thing and to share it with others. And all of our jobs, all of our relationships, all of our sporting activities, all of our missions, all of those things are reflections and manifestations of our purpose. And we have places in our life where we can be fully ourselves, and we have places in our life where we can't, and that doesn't change no matter how much you know about who you are. So what I do with people, and I think the first thing that we all should do, is figure out who we are at our core, and then we start to ask, how can I help myself experience more of that, and how can I help others? So that's what I mean by purpose. And how I came to this is I've been in the coaching industry for 20-something years. I've led large transformational programs. I've done individual work. I coached snowboarding in Japan at one point. I've done coaching in all sorts of different ways. I've also spent many thousands of dollars and hours in courses and being on the receiving end of coaching. But what got me into purpose the most is that I was a video producer, and I create tribute videos for people. And these are videos that if you want to do a video for your wife, we get 30 or 40 or 50 people saying what they love and appreciate about her. And then we put them all together, and everyone's saying, your wife is amazing and brilliant and beautiful and those sorts of things. And we put all those together, and you show it at a birthday party or an anniversary or retirement for somebody. And I did several hundred of those videos, and they're amazing. But after doing several hundred of those videos, I started to see that there was always a theme in the video. And I could see that the person was about love or joy or happiness. And it wasn't overt, and it wasn't loud. And it took me quite a few videos before I started to see it. But once I saw it, I could always see it. And then I started to read books, about knowing your purpose and understanding your why and all of those sorts of things. And it started to dawn on me that theme that I was seeing, that was that person's purpose. That's who they are. It's what they're about. It's who they are at their core. And since I had done videos for people from 7 to 90 all over the world, it just dawned on me that, wow, we all have something at our core. And what there is for us to do is to figure out who we are, figure out what that thing is, and then bring it from the background of our life to the foreground so that we can make more intentional use of it. Because it's already there, because it's showing up in the videos. So I went to work. This was about 5 years ago. I went to work, started seeing how can we do this? And I worked at it. And it turns out once you know that that thing is already there, it actually isn't very complicated to pull it to the front. And I got it down to just a couple of questions. And now what I do is I actually have people complete a survey, which Sam, you just did, and you can actually create pretty remarkable results very, very quickly. And do you mind if we talk about yours a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
So I'll just say this. So what I do ultimately is I help people figure out who they are. And then we start to ask the questions, well, how can you be more of that? Because the thing is that we all have far more experience being who we think we should be rather than who we actually are. And we have to go out and practice. So once we figure out who we are, I'm about people being free. And there are places in my life where I have great freedom to just be me in all sorts of ways. And there are places in my life where I really struggle. And as far as I can tell, that doesn't change no matter how aware, profound, brilliant you are. You have who you are at your core. It means something to you. There's places where you can be it and places where you can't. And when I got that, it took all the pressure off of like trying to be perfect, trying to get it right. And that still shows up for me. I'm not saying that doesn't, but it allows me to just say, okay, I'm about people being free. What freedom means to me is knowing who you are, having integrity, seeing the greatness in yourself and others, helping people, and getting paid for what you love to do. That's my definition of freedom. And what I can do now is I can bring that to my life on a day-to-day basis and look to see where I'm doing that and look to see where I'm not, because again, I'm not perfect. And ultimately what I help people do is learn how to be more of themselves so that they can accomplish the things they want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think I want to give you space to do this, but I have notes. So would you prefer me to talk about all my notes before or after we go through this process?
Why don't you ask your questions first?
Okay. So I'm going to push back a little bit, but only just so that I can make a point. Not that I disagree with you. And I think you and I are probably on the same wavelength here, but I'm a very wordy guy. Words mean a lot to me. And perfect is one word that I think is used wrongfully and causes a lot of damage to people psychologically when used wrongfully. So there's various definitions of the word perfect, right? One would mean flawless, okay, which then you can have a definition of what does flawless mean. But I think one of the top 3 definitions every time I look it up, so they could keep changing the dictionary and maybe it'll eventually not be in the top 3, but it means complete, right? And when I think of perfection, I think of complete. And so I would venture to say that you are perfect. And telling yourself you're not perfect doesn't serve you, but that you are perfect. And part of your perfection is that in some areas, you act differently or you're more reserved than in others. Another definition for perfect is balanced, right? And when we think about balance, there's positive and there's negative. If we lived so fully in positive, then we wouldn't be balanced. If you've ever tried to carry one really heavy bucket in one hand and nothing in the other, that will mess up your back and something like that. So when you think about perfect as being balanced, you actually need the downtime, the opposite of whatever on is. You need the off to be perfectly balanced. And so I would venture to say, again, I don't know you from Adam outside of this conversation, but I would say you're perfect. And that's a balance, right? And that is perfection. That's my own personal opinion and how I define words. And also the dictionary agrees with me. So it's convenient.
I can't argue with that at all.
But I think that's what you mean. Like you do feel like you're in alignment and you're whole the way you are. And it's okay to be the way you are in these different scenarios. And you're not bad and wrong for not showing up the way somebody else might think you should show up in a certain situation.
Correct. And there's also places where I struggle being myself, being my best self, where I fall short. And
that's part of perfection.
That's probably where I said, where I probably talk about the perfection part. But
okay, cool.
The main idea being is that we are who we are at a core, There's places where we can be that fully, and there's places where we can't.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that 1,000% as well. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm curious to go through this process with you though. So I fill out the form. What did you learn about me, or what can we learn here?
I'm going to share some of these here with. So you fill out the form, and it says that you're about love, and I'm sure anybody who knows you, and this is where the videos would actually show up. If I did a video, if I get 30 or 40 or 50 of your very best people, ask them what they love and appreciate about you, people loving their life or loving each other would probably be in the mix. Can you get that? Like, I mean, it probably is not the word that everybody would use, but overall, as an essence, it would be there. So that makes sense. And for you, love is about growth, acceptance, knowing who you are, connections, and creativity.
Yep. Is
that about right?
That's
great. Now, so here's the really cool part. So now you can start to say, okay, like for you, you can go out now and say, okay, how can I bring more love to my life? And you can start to look at these various things. You can ask yourself, how can I love myself today? And maybe there's some activities you might do. Like, what is something that you do that helps you just love who you are on a more regular basis?
So lots of things. One is I spend time with my kids every day. And it hurts me if there's a day that I don't get to see them. So listening to them cry and fight and all of those are things that really fulfill me. My wife, it stresses her out, but for me, it's like they're alive, they're happy, they're interacting. I think it's natural for kids to kind of beat up on each other. I've got 7 brothers. I know we fought all the time. So, well, I guess I have 6 brothers. I'm the 7th, but point is, there's a lot of us and we all fought, So I think that type of stuff is really healthy to have those types of interactions. So I love experiencing that. I love seeing my wife in the morning. I'm starting to love drinking water more, so that's a good thing. That's a growth thing that was really hard for me to actually start enjoying drinking water, but I know that I needed to, and so I think I'm on like 3 months now of drinking roughly 80 ounces of water every day, which is a lot of water for me, but I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. And I'm starting to
the whole idea here is that you start to develop, like, for you to love your life, there's certain things that you do that you can start to put in. You can start to create routines around that. And you're clearly a systems guy, right? You have your book is 9 steps. And so you start to break down what is there. And if you wake up one day and you're like, wow, I'm really not loving my life, or there's something going on, you're able to go through there and say, what is missing? And the idea is that you start to create it. And then you can start to ask, well, how can I help other people love their life? So what is something that you do to help other people love their life?
So one, I created a journal called the Fulfillment Journal to kind of walk them through and prompt them with the same questions that I prompt myself with to do that. Another thing that I do, I try to do every day, is I meet with people, I have conversations with them, and I help them see that they are, one, worth more, that they're worth being remembered, and that there's an actual pathway to get the time and resources to live their life the way on their own terms rather than on somebody else's terms. So that's one thing I do. I clean the dishes for my wife. Sometimes I vacuum. I try and give my kids a hug every morning. So yeah, things of that nature, things that I could do better, that I'm aware I could do better at. I struggle to connect with people, like calling them or texting them and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Because I think about them, but it's like a passing thought, and reaching out is just not in my habits. And so that's something that I'm aware is not a strength. And other people have said, hey, I would feel more cared about if you did this. I'm like, okay, I don't look for love outside of myself. And so it's weird that you do. And that's hard for me to feed somebody who's looking for love outside of themselves, because it doesn't come across that way to me, because I don't look for it outside of myself. So it's a little interesting giving somebody what they need, even though you don't need it. I'm not fully there yet. I have
totally makes sense.
Something I'm working on.
Yeah. So you actually brought up a couple of really powerful points. So one, our purpose is always about ourselves and other people. There's things that you're like, this is what love means to me. And you actually, now you have it broken down very clearly. So you can go out and talk to people and you say, hey, you know what? I did this podcast with this guy, and I realized that I'm about people loving themselves or loving their life. And, it's whatever language you want to use. And what love means to me is growth, acceptance, knowing who you are, connection, and creativity. Out of curiosity, what does love mean to you? And you would share that. You would ask that person, and they would share that with you. They would share some, because love is going to mean different things to different people. And the more that it will want to create this really interesting conversation, because probably nobody's ever asked them what love means to them, because we never have those conversations, except if you're talking to me. And it will do two things. One, it will form a connection with them, and two, it will help you expand your understanding of what love means to other people. Because as someone who wants to go out and who has a mission, who wants to talk to people about legacy, who wants people to love their life in such a way that it makes a difference 6 generations down, it might help to know how love shows up for different people, so that when you go out and speak, you can speak to that listening and not just what you think love is.
That is a good feedback. So, funny story about love. Just I don't know how many people know this, except for the people who it's directly related to. When I was in high school, so despite a lot of trauma that happened in my younger years in my family, my mom did teach me that love was something that was universal and that everybody deserves love. Now, there's different levels of acceptance of behavior, but love doesn't matter who you are, where you came from. Like, we care about humans and animals and like about people. So I went to high school and I used to tell girls that I loved them all the time. And in their minds, that meant something like attraction, or I thought they were cute, or I wanted to be their boyfriend or whatever. And I finally got fed up with like me wanting to tell people that I love them, but them thinking something that wasn't intended. And so what I did, and this is like 14 years old, I actually wrote out my definition of love. It was probably a paragraph and a half or longer. And whenever I got to a deep enough friendship with somebody that I wanted to start telling them that I love them, I would say, hey, I need you to read something. I'd send them a text message with my definition of love and say, I'd love to be able to tell you that I love you, but this is what love means to me, so there's no misconceptions. So then I'm dating my wife and I do the same thing, right? Because this has been a habit since 14. I met my wife when I was 22. So this is 8 years ingrained into a habit of like me being vulnerable first and saying, look, this is what love means to me. Are you comfortable? If this is what I mean, are you comfortable with me telling you that I love you, right? Without getting weird about things. Well, so then I tell my wife, again, I let her read my definition. I'm like, hey, like, I love you. And because we were having a conversation of like, are you always going to love me? What if you fall out of love with me or whatever? And to me, because of my definition of love, I'm like, this question doesn't make sense. You don't fall out of love with somebody. Either you choose to love humans or not. And that's pretty much it. So like, I love you because I love myself. Why wouldn't I love you? And she's like, well, then how do I know you're going to be loyal to me? And I was like, well, loyalty and love are completely two separate conversations in my mind, right? In her mind, they're like, well, if he loves the other girl down the street and me, then how do I know he's not going to go sleep with the other girl? I'm like, because that's an entirely different conversation, right? Anyways, not to her. So after that conversation, though, it did get cleared up, and now I can tell whoever I want that I love them, and it's not weird, and my wife is totally on board with it, and she understands that loyalty is what I've committed to her, that I'm going to be loyal and have a oneness with her in many aspects. But as far as my soul, it's going to love everybody that I come in contact with. And that's just how Sam is. But it is funny defining love. And the funny thing is, I've always been very free and like written out my definition and shared it. But I don't know that I've like really gone through the effort to ask people what their definition is. So very self-serving, I guess, the last 8 years. I could have had a lot better results. But thank you for bringing this up, because this is like big start on my page. I need to ask people what their definition is of.
Yeah, and so now all those exes from high school can call you up, right, and say, "This is what I meant."
Yeah, this is what I meant. Yeah, so silly, but I love it.
And so it's just a really powerful thing, because we all think. And here's the thing to know, though, too, is that other people may not be into love. They may be into joy or happiness, excitement, or freedom. I found that there's 5 main things that people say: love, joy, happiness, excitement, and freedom. in the English language. These are the top five. There are others that come up, but those are the top five. And what you'll find is that people are definitely not in the same definition of love to you, and they may be more about joy than love, or happiness than love. And the trick is not to think that yours is better than theirs. It's just you're about love in your particular way. They're maybe about joy. And by figuring that out, you can actually have these really interesting conversations and really connect with people. And I think in just a much deeper and more authentic, real way. And one of my goals is to normalize people talking about purpose. I think we all should be having these conversations because this is what we talk about anyway. Like, look, you've been talking about love since you were 14. This is nothing new. It's just bringing a little more structure and a little more intentionality to it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, but there's a part I want to point out that's really cool. Now, you brought up not being able to, not following up with people to connect with them as some place where maybe you're experiencing something less than love.
I would say they are experiencing less than love. In my mind, we're best of friends, and anytime we chat, it's like we just met. And that comes from like my childhood was it was traumatic, and our family, although we're all together and our parents are still together and everything's great, as a way of survival, I went and built friendships with like the friendships that I built. They were just as close to me as my family members. And about when I was 16-ish, I was going in between Utah and Idaho a lot. And I found myself every time I would leave, I would have this like feeling of loss because FOMO, right? FOMO is a real thing. And I was like, well, now I'm missing out. I have to leave these people, and that's so unfortunate. I'm kind of excited to see these other people, but then I miss out on these people's lives. So I was feeling lost, and I remember making a conscious decision that I was going to live fully in the present where I was at and not worry about what I was leaving behind, because they will very likely still be there when I get back. And as long as I expressed my love and my care and everything when I left their presence, and then I'm going to go be present where I am. And then when I get back into their presence, hopefully they still the accept me the same way I left them. And so that was a decision in my teen years. But as a result of that, in my mind, even though I haven't talked to my friends or my team or whatever in like a month and a half or 2 months or 3 months, I think, oh yeah, in my mind, it's just as if we never left. In their mind, they're like, where's my friend at? Why has he not called me in 3 months? I'm like, right. What do you mean? We just talked the other day, 3 months ago.
Well, let me ask you this. I brought that up because as an example, is there some place in your life that you're willing to share where you're experiencing something less than love in your life?
I'm experiencing less than love. I don't think so, but this is probably the closest that again, because love is so separate. Love is like something that I choose into every day, and nobody my circumstances have zero effect on whether I feel love personally, because I believe I operate from a belief system that love is an internal game and it emits outward. It's not something that comes inward, and that's a Sam definition. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Is there any part of your business that you're like, what, I'm not loving it as much?
Yeah. So this is where I would say with product providers, because I work in finance and sometimes I have to call product providers, and I don't get flustered very often with them because I can like put myself in their situation and recognize they're just some guy on some telephone and they're probably having just as bad of a day as me if I'm upset. Right. So, but sometimes I do get frustrated of their lack of competence. Like sometimes like, okay, it's your job. This is literally all you do all day. How do I know your job better than you know your job? And I don't know that I would say that's like a lack of love from them, but it's definitely like a frustration of the process. And I don't always stay in complete understanding and acceptance of love all the time in those circumstances. I can tell you that for sure.
Perfect. So what this theory says is any place where you're experiencing something then of your definition of love, one of your pillars, and this is what I call those 5 things, these are your purpose pillars, are either missing or could be elevated. So in those relationships with those providers is growth, acceptance, knowing who you are, connection, or creativity Which one of those is either missing or could be elevated?
Oh, it's creativity, number one, because I'm like solutions oriented. So I'm like, well, I get that you're telling me no, but how? I want to know how, not no, how. So creativity, when somebody's just too lazy to be creative.
Well, hold on a second. I want to be clear. This is not on their side.
Oh,
this is
okay.
on your side. This has nothing to do with them because we can't control them.
Then
this is what can you bring to this situation that you can either elevate or it's missing completely. Growth, acceptance, knowing who you are, connection, or creativity that you could bring to that relationship that would help elevate your sense of love.
Yeah, probably if I was more focused. Well, one, remembered who I was, because I like when I get flustered, then it's a very like out of body experience. Like, that's not who Sam is. I would need to call back and say sorry because I didn't mean to hang up on that. I mean, like, I definitely meant to in the moment, but that's not who Sam is. So connection is one where, or connection and knowing who I am, those are both definitely where I feel like, you know what, I could do better in these. And then it reminds me of growth because it's something that I'm aware of, that I decided with my wife that I'm going to start calling them disabilities, and it's not rude or offensive, but it's literally a lack of ability. And that's what the prefix dis means, is lack of. So it is a lack of ability sometimes to be more competent more often. So that's one of the things that I'm disabled at in that area is it's a struggle for me to always stay to be growing in that area all the time. So I would say, yeah, those three.
Yeah. And the idea here is that any place you're experiencing less than love, you can start to go through. Like for me, like when I get angry, that's like my very worst state. Like when I lose my temper, the first thing that I have to do is go, okay, who am I? Take a breath, remind me, who am I? Okay, I'm about people being free, and that just gives me a space to take a step. Mm-hmm. And what you'll find is in any place, and it's amazing how quick this is, because this is what love means to you. If you're experiencing something less than love, one of those things are either missing or could be elevated. And so now what happens is that each person has a framework, because this, and for all listeners, you can go fill out, it'll be in the show notes, I'm sure. You can fill out this survey and you can start to use it right away. And you can start to say, how can I help myself experience more of whatever your purpose word is? How can I help others experience more? And then you can start to see where these things are missing. And what I really love about this is this ultimately just helps people be more of themselves. I'm not giving you any coaching on how to be loving or how to be more. It's just simply how to be more of yourself. How can you bring more of yourself in these different situations?
Yeah, I think that's huge. And that I agree. And anybody who listens to like lots of my podcasts knows that this is a big focus, right? I actually did a whole segment and a stint of my brand, and it's still a little bit part of my brand, but like if you go on my website, it's Sam Knickerbocker, identify your identity, right? You use the word purpose, I use the word identity, and it's the same thing, right? There's a point, and I love this, but through like deep meditation, when I get to what the Buddhists would call nirvana, or like this state where of complete connection, right? I don't know how else to describe it other than like you feel connected to literally everything, and it's the most incredible out of body experience I've ever had. When I get there, my word to define that is love, and it's very interesting here, and I'm appreciative of this to know that somebody else might define that as joy, somebody else might define that as happiness or freedom, and I forgot the other one that you excitement, right? But it's all the same feeling. And so my question is, are you able to, let me go back. So for me to coach somebody through that, to help them really feel what that is, because for me, it was like a switch, man. Once I got myself to that level of meditation and it clicked, this is what love is. Like instantly walls came down, instantly condemnation, judgment left me, instantly anger left me. It was so fast once I recognized that state that like it was gone. And so what I found though is if I go tell somebody, this is your identity, right? Your identity is, let's just say it's one of these three, right? Love, joy, happiness, freedom, excitement. Now in the past I've said it's love, but clearly I think I'll agree with you here, and I'll concede that there's other ways to describe that same feeling. But if you just go tell somebody that and they don't really go discover it for themselves, have you found as good of a transformation, or do you feel like for them to really get the transformation aspect of it, they need to be guided to experiencing that on a full level, like full body type experience, so that they can actually move into their life with that being the new starting point?
So here's what I say. Here's what I say to that is one, no matter who the person is, they're going to have stories just like your I love you story. They're going to tell me it happens all the time. Someone I was working with a guy who was a super like just he was an accountant and turned real estate guy. So he was just like all numbers. Like you talk to him, it's just he just spewed numbers, and he was this. And we're doing this exercise, and he comes up with love. Like ask him the questions, and he's about love. And I'm like, awesome. How's that show up in your life? And we're talking, and he starts to laugh. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, you know what? I bought a website a little while ago, and it was something like the town he was in. Like, I love the town. It was something like love the town real estate, whatever. It was something about loving the real estate in that particular town. And that was the URL that he bought. And he said, I could never launch it because I didn't think it was appropriate. I couldn't use love. But my wife and my assistant told me to use it, but I never did. And there are story after story of where you can go back and look at a person's brand, and what you can see is the essence of their words and of who they are sprinkled through that. Because see, who you are, you've been about love since, day one, or, who knows when, but very, very young. So that thing has been oozing out of you and impacting how you act and interact in ways that you can't imagine, you can't see. And that happens for everybody. So if they're about joy is going to show up in their life, throughout their ways. And same thing for everybody. So now here's the part. So yes, you can have a great big transformation. That's totally awesome. But the thing is, there are still places in your life where you can be fully present to love, and there's places in your life where you struggle. Like that's not going to change no matter how aware you are. So the person who figures this out day one with let's just say no awareness training at all, they figure out that they're about joy, and here are the steps, they're what their pillars are. They're going to see places in their life where they can be that, and places in their life where they're going to struggle. I do this work with somebody like you who's done a ton of work and a ton of awareness work. Same thing. You figure out there's places in your life and where there's places where you struggle. And the whole idea then is that it's not about. I don't think it's about this whole. And maybe just because I've never really experienced complete nirvana and that understanding of it all. So maybe there's a world that I don't know about, which I can admit to. But the idea being is that what there is for us to do is to build up what I call our purpose muscles. To go out and say, how can I help myself experience more love today? How can I help other people experience, and practice that and build that up? Like you might start to ask yourself, okay, do my clients, are they present to love as they go through my process of working with them? Are your partners, or is your staff, are they present to love? Not just loving themselves, but loving other people. And you'll see places where they are and they aren't. And you can start to address that. So I don't look for this massive transformation. I look for a huge smile. Like when you said love, you smiled. I don't know if we're going to show this on video, but you smiled. And that smile, and what's really interesting is that someone may be playing with, like, say, happiness or joy, which are very, very similar feelings. But for a person that's about joy, when they land on joy, it totally lights them up. And for the person that's about happiness, it lights them up. And I can see it in their face, and it's this wonderful thing. So that's what I look for, and then the idea of saying, like, now it's time to go to work, as opposed to a great big miraculous life-altering transformation.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate that. I think there's different stages, right? Just because I had this amazing transformation, that I think what that transformation did for me, just so everybody's clear, that gave me the permission, or allowed me to let go of all the other things that weren't love, all the other expectations or the other words, joy, happiness, freedom, excitement, whatever. Like let go of everything that wasn't exactly that and push forward in the direction that I knew. So it wasn't like, well, it just happened and overnight I was this infinite loving being that never gets like, no, that I just told you a time I get frustrated. Another time, like the last time I got frustrated, and this is so silly, but it's true. We were in Vegas. It was late at night. It's Valentine's Day. We ordered our dinner through Grubhub, and then we ordered, because the place we ordered dinner from didn't have cheesecake. I wanted cheesecake, and I wanted to get my wife cheesecake for Valentine's Day. So we ordered cheesecake through this other place. And on Grubhub, you can watch the driver who's delivering your food. And you get like second by second updates. Well, I watched him drive up to the hotel. I was in the lobby. I watched him drive up to the hotel, saw the car. There was the same car on thing. He stopped. I'm looking at my phone. It switches to delivered and he drives away. Never gave me my food. I'm like, what? Anyways, I was overtired. I really wanted to give something to my wife and get something for myself. And blatantly, they went and picked up the food and they drove away with my food. I was like, that burned me. I'm still like, even right now, it's still just like, how inconsiderate. Anyway, so does stuff like that happen to me? Absolutely, right? I'm not this infinitely loving being, but it's very seldom that it does happen.
Well, that sort of taps into one point that I want to make about purpose, is that our purpose is always about ourselves and others. So there is always internal work to do, but there's also the systems that we have in our life impact our ability to experience and share our purpose. So in that case, that the system of that Grubhub broke down and really impacted your ability to share your purpose, right? Like that. If that happened over and over again, you would not be loving Grubhub.
Oh,
now,
no.
We know that doesn't happen very often, and so you probably still have love. But this points to, and I think this is really important. Like when you're looking at your purpose, it's not just you, but it's also there's the systems. You have your how you manage your fitness and your finances. How you manage your business, how you do podcasting, right, is a system that will contribute to or impact your ability to share love. We have our systemic issues, sexism, racism, biases, political issues. All those things impact our ability to experience and share a purpose. And they impact people in different ways, but they all impact us all in some way. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that, so the question is for you, like, how can we create a political system that fostered love? Like, how can we create a education system that fostered love? Like, those are big questions.
Those are big questions I haven't got the answer to, because it's different for everybody. One person thinks that, I'm a religious person. I happen to be Christian. Okay. Doesn't mean it's the right thing. It's just what my current belief system is. And there are other religions that don't need names right now, but that they believe the loving thing to do would be to kill me because I don't believe in their religion. Like, there's people who believe that. Now, whether it's right or wrong, that's their belief. They believe that doing something that I believe is a heinous act and crime and very much not an act of love, they believe is an act of love. And so that from a political, religious, the societies, when you have a conglomerate of all of these different definitions of love coexisting, it's very difficult to land on something that makes sense for everybody when you have diametrically opposed definitions.
And this is why we talk about it. I'm not going to say we're going to resolve those issues.
No, we won't.
And I'm sure they'll point out different places where Christianity acted in ways that were far less than loving. Those are there too. And and this is why I have a podcast called What's Your Purpose? And my mission is to help normalize people talking about purpose. Because the more that we can talk about it, the more we can say, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm doing really great with it. And here's where I really struggle. And we could actually have these conversations. Then we can start to have the foundation to have the bigger conversations. We could look at one of the things that really kind of got me thinking about this is when I started thinking about the purpose of our country, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, and for many people, those words just do not hold true at all, because we delivered that for some and really, really didn't for many, many others. And so we live in a country where we say we're about one thing, but we're actually have been acting for hundreds of years in ways that are different than that. And that has to have an impact on all of us. So I say, if we want to be able to start to address the big issues in our country, we start to ask, well, what does life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all mean to each other? And start to engage in that conversation. Because as far as I can tell, everybody wants that, but we don't know what it means, and we don't have enough practice talking about it. We spend too much time talking about the Constitution rather than talking about the purpose of our country, which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all.
And I love that concept, and I'm so grateful that we talked about it. We are running out of time. This is so unfortunate. We will have to have another conversation either on your show or on my show, because I think we could further this on either show and it'd fit. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I do want to make sure that people know where they can get a hold of you. Where is the best place to reach out to you, Joey?
You can go to joeychandler.net. is my website. It has all the social handles. I'm on Joey Chandler 70 is on all my handles on every LinkedIn.
Do you do that on Clubhouse as well? Joey Chandler
70? Joey Chandler 70 is my thing across the board.
Man, yeah, I am so enthralled with this conversation. There's so much I didn't get to, which is just.
You have to ask your end.
I know. No. Well, we're getting there.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm just saying. No. We're gonna ask this, but.
Okay.
Honestly, if you guys would love more of this conversation, reach out to me. I can have him on again, no problem. And go check out his podcast, because his podcast is all about this concept, which is phenomenal, right? What is your purpose? How do you find your purpose? If you're feeling they're purposeless, so a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they happen to be stay-at-home moms, and in there you can get lost, sacrificing your life for your kids, and lose sight of your purpose because you're so focused on being what your children need. And I totally get that, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's ways to bring your purpose into your day. And that's what I love about this conversation with Joey. So thank you so, so much. Now we're going to move to Legacy on Rapid Fire. Okay. So I know he's like, don't let me miss out on my questions.
I got it all prepared.
I know. No, I'm not getting out. You're not getting out that easy. So are you ready though for Legacy on Rapid Fire?
I am.
Okay. He's like eagerly anticipating and excited about this. Perfect. So what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
I got to get better at sales. I be honest, like I got to get better at sales. Like seeing my offering as a service and not as a burden, and getting in the way. I'm launching a membership program right now. I have a general membership program, and I have a kind of intensive cohort. And I have to get better at sales. I think if awesome. I mastered sales, that would really help my legacy.
Cool. I love it. And what is the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
Oh, being a dad.
What's your greatest accomplishment to this point in your life?
Well, besides being a dad, those UR videos, that's what I call the videos that I did, those changed lives. Like when you have 30 or 40 or 50 people tell you how much they love and appreciate about you, it is incredible that what that does. Like those videos change lives.
Yeah, I mean, I get choked up a little bit just thinking about what people would say about me, even if it's all in my own mind. I think they're all great things, so I would love to hear it from their mouth. Anyways, that's a whole other segment that I wanted to talk about. We didn't have time for. So, what are one or two secret habits, mindsets, or behaviors that you think have contributed most to your success?
I share my purpose all the time.
Okay, and what are
about people being free? I share it all the time. It's simple, and it makes a huge difference because it reminds me where I am and am not being that.
Fantastic. What are one or two books you believe would benefit the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
Anybody who's interested in purpose has to pick up autobiographies by musicians. I love the Bruce Springsteen autobiography. I love the Beastie Boys autobiography. Miles Davis is incredible. And if you listen to him on audio or the Audible, it's amazing. And the reason for that is because in every book by a musician that I've read, at some point they say, and I or we discovered our voice. And there's like this moment, they've worked their butts off to get to that point, and they work their butts off afterwards, but they have this sense of like, I figured out who I was or who we were, and that made all the difference. And it's in it's in so many ones. Like the Beastie Boys autobiography is incredible. They talk about the song that set them up. It was the song before the big song, but it was the song. And it's amazing.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that. I would not have expected that to be the one, but I love it that it is. Now I need to go look at some. I'm always in for interesting reading. I did like a lot of business reading for like 3 years, and my mind is like, okay, at some point you have to stop consuming and start producing, and just like let it breathe for a second. But I switched into like Greek mythology or different things because I just wanted something different. Okay, so this is
the Bruce Springsteen autobiography is awesome because he narrates it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so this is a final question. This is literally why I do the whole podcast. I love this question. I love the answer, everything about it. So we're going to pretend that you've died, and you're now 6 generations from now, and your great-great-great-great-grandchildren, they're sitting around a table discussing your life, the impact you had, and the legacy you left. What do you want them to be saying about your legacy 6 generations from now?
I helped the world figure out their purpose, and we ended racism because of it.
And that would be incredible. If Joey Chandler ends racism, I'm on board with helping you accomplish that. Because
it won't be me entirely, but my thought is that if we all get present to our purpose and we start to say, hey, you know what? Racism just gets in the way of all of us being our full selves. Why wouldn't we go work against it?
Yeah, I agree. More love and acceptance of everybody from every perspective. And thank you so much, Joey, for taking the time out of your busy life to share that with me and helping me process through that. I've got some good actionable things that I need to work on, or that I get to work on. I'm excited to work on, and to learn more about what other people experience and how they would define my words, so that I can get more information there. So thank you so much. And any last words?
No, thank you. Props for, I think you're up to a couple hundred episodes. Dude, that is no small feat. So huge props for that. And
yeah, no problem. It's definitely a lot of fun. I enjoy it to the nth degree. I love podcasting. So thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.